Some bad news for President Trump's Liberation Day tariffs. A federal court has blocked the Trump administration from imposing those sweeping tariffs under an emergency powers law.
The ruling was handed down at the U.S. Court of International Trade by a three-judge panel and comes after several lawsuits were brought against the tariffs, arguing President Trump was exceeding his authority.
Meanwhile, Trump had a meltdown yesterday over an acronym the Wall Street Journal is using to describe him and his tariffs. Let's watch.
Mr. President, Wall Street analysts have coined a new term called the taco trade. They're saying Trump always chickens out on your tariff threats, and that's why markets are higher this week. What's your response to that?
Oh, isn't that nice? Chicken out. I've never heard that. You mean because I reduced China from 145% that I set down to 100 and then down to another number? 6 months ago, this country was stone cold dead. We had a dead country. We had a country people didn't think it was going to survive, and you ask a nasty question like that. But don't ever say what you said. That's a nasty question.
Such a nasty question. Social media had some mixed reactions to the news. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller writes on X, "The judicial coup is out of control."
Midas Touch editor-in-chief Ron Flipkowski shot back at Miller saying, quote, "It's now Marxist to understand that the Constitution only authorizes Congress to impose tariffs." And former White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci is saying the ruling is, quote, "why we have checks and balances." Thank you, Anthony Scaramucci. This is going to dramatically affect Trump's tariff power because he went over Congress's head to try to implement something that he interpreted, this 1977 law, as something that he can use against foreign countries over tariffs. And when you skip steps, you get balanced and checked, which is the point of our government. He doesn't have unchecked power, and somebody in his party and outside of his party should let him know that so that we can go about this the right way. I think what he was using this as is a bargaining chip for 18 different countries to say, hey, I'm going to over tariff you, even if you're our allies, make you uncomfortable, give the squeeze to everyone that's in my country that uses products from your country and vice versa. And we're just going to go back and forth with no real game plan or solution. And here we are with the American people feeling a lot of it already, some of it more this summer in June, and no solution. And now our own country making him look silly for these abrupt knee-jerk decisions.
Yeah, fair enough. I mostly agree with you. I'm not a big fan of the tariffs. I'm also not a big fan of just unilateral executive action. It seems obvious to me in hindsight that the dramatic fluctuations in the tariff rates he was proposing unilaterally again were going to exceed his statutory authority. What is Congress for if not to craft things of this nature? And again, this is a theme I frequently return to. Republicans, if you're upset about this and you really want the Trump tariffs and you're in Congress, you have no excuse. You can just do it yourself. Republicans control Congress. Democrats are going to stand in the way. They're going to filibuster. They're going to do whatever. Fine, let them. And then you say, see, we're trying to implement our agenda. Democrats are thwarting us. That's why you need to elect even more Republicans. That's how it works. Things done just by, the signing of a pen can be undone just as easily. So, for all the MAGA world people who are steamed about this, we'll just do it the right way, and then you won't have any problems. Now, I think the tariffs are not a good idea. I was actually really annoyed with that reporter for asking that question because...
What? You don't like taco? Trump always chickens out? She didn't make it up. She's quoting.
So then he's going to do him even harder. Don't say that. Here's how I would say it.
He makes a name up for everybody.
Mr. President, in your wisdom, everyone is talking about how smart you were to bring down those tariff rates and how beautiful you are internally, and the economy is so beautiful. So why are you so smart for not doing tariffs anymore? That's the way you got to do it.
A journalist's job is
everyone's
not
laughing
to
at you and
cozy up
you
to
an
the
idiot.
president and schmooze him and make no. This is a taco. You literally backed down against China. China has. It's really funny. China has decided that they're actually not going to cower in any way. They actually have said they don't know what meetings Trump is referring to when they said they had conversations on the table. The first time I think they spoke to Trump's team is in Switzerland, I believe, at some conference. And so they are not on the same page. And so China, if they're the biggest, supposed to be bearing the biggest brunt of this, are actually don't feel like they are. They're just going to go to other countries and trade with them if we can't get it together. And so I think, also people need to know that some of the taxes and the tariffs that Trump imposed on steel and aluminum are still in place because they're under an entirely different ruling. And so that is still going to affect people. So not only will he not get his way with getting other countries, 18 of them, to kind of bend to his will based on using an iron fist, we also are going to see higher prices on things that we buy every day that have aluminum, steel, and other major, cars, everything. So we're still going to see those tariffs go up, and he also didn't get what he wants. So here we are, just relying on like the big beautiful bill to solve something, because right now he's almost 6 months in, and we don't have any real legislation that we can, I guess, lay our hats on.
We don't have any legislation of any kind because Congress refuses to legislate.
But Congress is all Republican, so what's the issue?
Right. The issue is, well, a couple issues. When it comes to tariff, the issue is, and depending on how you feel about this, again, I'm not for the tariffs. A lot of people in the MAGA faction are. The truth is that the average Republican congressman, in his heart of hearts, does not want the tariffs and does not think they're good policy.
Exactly.
But only a select few, my guys, Rand Paul and Thomas Massie and others, are willing to say that it's bad policy, it's effectively a tax increase, it will hurt small business owners, we shouldn't do them, it's Marxist far-left policy, let's not do them. Every other Republican is afraid, agrees with, not every single one, but most of them.
Use the right word.
Right, they think that, but they're afraid to say so. So they're glad, they're gonna be like, oh, activist judges are thwarting our sweet, wonderful president. They're actually glad about it because they don't want it to be their job to thwart the Trump agenda. They know they'll have to do the Trump agenda if it push comes to shove, but they don't want to do this part of the agenda because they don't think it's good policy.
That's a terrible state that we're in, that people can't actually stand up for the things that they ran on, that their constituents believe that they would follow through on. Tariffs are not generally on the Republican agenda as a huge issue. And so
historically, it's been a Democratic policy, more associated with
which is why I'm
Democrats,
confused that these people don't care more about their constituents than they do about appeasing President Trump, who can't even run again.
The coalitions are shifting, right? Labor and blue-collar workers historically were a part of the Democratic Party. Now they are more becoming a part of the Republican Party, so that's changing the economic priorities of the two parties, right? The parties are reforming before our eyes, where the Democratic Party...
I don't agree with that. I think that they're just blindly allegiant to President Trump, and so now they're trying to figure out how to scale back, but being cowardly by not saying anything, so just allowing it all to fall on people like Rand Paul, like you said. I don't think that after Trump leaves, that a traditional or some conservative that falls in lines more within the realm of what we've seen over the last decades if they get back in office, people will fall in line to what makes more sense for fiscal conservatives and other things. That's been the biggest issue.
It depends who Trump's replaced with. If the next leader of the Republican Party is a more traditional Republican, then yeah, they'll all be anti-tariff again. They're still anti-tariff. They will proclaim anti-tariff policy. If it's J.D. Vance, though, who is the likely successor to Trump, he's more ideologically pro-tariff even than Donald Trump is. So I don't expect the party to snap back if that's the case. Next up, Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that he's revoking the visas of Chinese students. We will discuss that. Stay with us.